Recorded Books presents Miss Julia, Happily Ever After by Anne B. Ross. Narrated by Cynthia Darlow. Chapter 1. All things considered, you'd think we'd have taken it in stride. But no, I mean, people get married all the time, don't they? But just let someone mention the words wedding, bridesmaid, engagement ring, or the like, and everybody gets all a-twitter with excitement, even though the happy couple may be the most unlikely pairing anyone could imagine. As word of the currently forthcoming nuptials began to trickle out, I admit to a tingle of excitement myself, although my fingers were crossed behind my back whenever I passed the news along. Of course, I wished them well and all that, but I couldn't help but wonder why they'd want to rock the boat. Their present arrangement seemed the best possible one under the circumstances, and they'd already lived down the rampant speculation and gossip that had stirred the town when she'd moved in. So why in the world would they want to start it all up again? I didn't know. But one thing I did know, and that was that Helen Stroud never did anything she had not thoroughly thought through and determined the benefit or lack of same to her. And if that makes her sound cold-hearted and self-absorbed, I don't mean it to. What I mean is that Helen was clear-eyed and far-sighted. She knew what she was doing, even though nobody else could figure out why she was doing it. She already had Thurlow Jones under her thumb and his checkbook in her hand. So why in the world would she want to marry him? Well, of course, that was no more understandable than their original arrangement, which had stunned us all and become the subject of at least 2 sermons in a non-denominational church on the outskirts of town. No names were mentioned, as you can imagine, but when the preacher went off on a tangent about 2 people living openly in sin at an age and of a class that should have known better, they say everybody in the congregation sat up straight and nodded in agreement. I didn't hear the sermons myself, being a Presbyterian attending my own church where things are done decently and in order, yet our pastor touched briefly on being unequally yoked in marriage one Sunday when his topic was the wedding in Cana. He did a fine tap dance with that, since Presbyterians aren't too liberal when it comes to drinking wine either, but everybody knew who he was talking about. And everybody knew that for many years of her life Helen Stroud had been one of the most active women in our church. Why, she had been president of the women of the church at least twice, a Sunday school teacher for years, and a circle chairman several times. And when we finally got around to electing women to the board of deacons and to the session, she showed her allegiance to Paul's admonition about women keeping silence in the church by refusing to run. We admired her for that. Everything changed, though, when she moved in with Thurlow Jones. She hasn't darkened the door of any church since then, and as far as I know, not one person from the visitation committee, much less the pastor himself, has gone to see her to urge her back into the fold. Let me tell you something. When a church drops you, you pretty much stay dropped. I wonder, though, if that will change when a marriage certificate elevates her to legitimacy. But here's the thing. I'd have to be in worse straits than unwelcome in church to go to such an extreme as to legally bind myself to the likes of Thurlow Jones. All I can say is that the stars must have been crazily aligned to have brought those 2 together. Helen was one of those neat, capable women, fastidious to a fault, who could have run a major industry if she hadn't first married a go-getter husband who overstepped himself into a 10-year sentence for fraud and embezzlement. But Helen was no Tammy Wynette. She divorced him as soon as the prison door slammed shut behind him and went about arranging her life to accommodate the new reality of having to work for a living. Thurlow, on the other hand,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?